Alright, YouTubers. This is Byron Campbell, also known as Kitten Hoarder on Board Game Geek, and we now return to the Mansions of Madness with Scenario 1, Fall of House Lynch from the base game, and we are playing with my No-Keeper Threat Deck variant that turns it into a fully cooperative game that can be played solitaire, as you are seeing now. As we left our heroes, we had Dexter Drake, who was heading off toward trying to get into this jammed door into the basement. We have a maniac who we thought we killed, but has reappeared at the altar. We have a zombie who was previously on fire, battling with Kate Winthrop, the scientist, in the hallway over here, and Kate is trying to get over to the master bedroom, because she has the key. And we have good old Monterey Jack using his legendary map to explore the mansion, try and find some good equipment to help out the rest of the investigators. Alright, so who should we start with? I think I'm just going to go straight to Kate, because she's going to have the most complicated turn and the one I'm most worried about. So, Kate is stunned, which means she only receives one movement step. She gets -2 to all of her attribute rolls. And that's it, really. So she is going to try to do combat against that zombie, but she has a bit of a trouble because she is getting it -2 to her rolls. So she might be ending up using one of her skill tokens, which will add her luck to the roll, to give her a better chance. But she's going to start out by trying to attack this zombie that is in her space. So she's going to use her shotgun, which will deal 2 extra damage if she actually damages the zombie. And it says, no weapon, that's not the right one. So you keep drawing until we find one that says ranged weapon. There we go. It says, right before you pull the trigger, the zombie screams and charges you. Test your willpower. Oh, that's good, because that's a strong stat for her. She has a 6 in willpower, but it's a -2. And she's going to use one of her 4 skill tokens to add to. So she has to get a 6 or lower. Alright. So the zombie is charging her, screaming in this inhuman guttural tones as its exposed throat is just hanging there. Alright. What are we doing? Yeah! If we had not spent a skill token, we would have failed. But we have succeeded. So, she coolly fires her weapon into its chest. She deals her weapon damage +2 because it's at range of 0. That's another 6 damage to that zombie, so she has taken it out. Good job, Kate. Alright, so she's killed the zombie in the hallway. And she has 1 movement step because of her stunned ability. So instead of moving into that hallway that is on fire, she is going to, just in case anything bad happens... No, I was going to say she might hide in this hiding space here, just in case anything bad comes after her. But I think she's just going to not use her movement and just stay there. Because if she hid in the hiding place, she would have to use a movement to get out of the hiding place as well, which wouldn't really be worthwhile for her. And there's no enemies nearby. So, that's Kate's turn. Let's go to Dexter now. He's going to try and get into that jammed door. So he's going to go 1, and then he's going to try to use his second move to get into the jammed door. Because it's a lock, he has to first resolve the lock card before he can finish his movement. And it says to test his strength to try and bash through the jammed door. And unfortunately, his strength is only 4, so he is also going to use a skill token to try to bash through the door. So he now has to get an 8 or lower. This will be easy. Alright, he didn't even have to use that skill token. It was a bit of a waste because he only gets 2. But in any case, he bashed through the jammed door. So we discard this lock card, and he continues his movement, and now he has ended his turn in the basement landing, and he has 1 action remaining, which he will use to explore, finding a sedative, which is an equipment card. It can be used to discard 1 trauma card from an investigator in his space. But that investigator, because of the sedative, may not move on the next turn. That's another nice little flavor. The reason he was so determined to get into this room is because he wants to use this barrier to try and jam, to press the barrier up against the basement storage room, so that when this maniac tries to come through, he'll be trapped. But mistimed that a little bit because 1-2, the maniac's going to come through on his next turn. So hopefully Dexter is prepared for that. He's going to be able to take out the maniac with his sword cane. Alright, finally we have Monterey Jack, and he's already in the freezer. He's going to start out by exploring. And he finds, this is the power failure card we should have had here. So just pretend that those are switched. He finds a suitcase in here, but we'll do this power failure puzzle. The lights in the room refuse to turn on. Place a darkness marker in your room. Solve wiring puzzle 1A to discard this card and the darkness marker to continue exploring. Alright, so we're going to set up wiring puzzle 1A. Okay, so we return as Monterey Jack is attempting to solve wiring puzzle 1A. And a wiring puzzle is almost exactly the same as a lock puzzle, such as we saw earlier, except you will get to use an action, a puzzle action, in this puzzle that we didn't get to see in the previous one, which is that you can, instead of rotating like so, or replacing, you can spend an action to swap 2 adjacent tiles in the puzzle. So we could do it like that. It wouldn't necessarily be a good move, but that is something that Monterey Jack could do. Alright, so they were back like that. So that's the big difference. Now we could have done that with the lock puzzle. There's nothing prohibiting you from doing that with a lock puzzle, except that none of the tiles in the lock puzzle were adjacent. If you remember, the starting piece of the lock puzzle was separating all of them. But there was one move that we could have done that I just found out by looking up the rules to make sure I was remembering the differences between the puzzles correctly. And I always forget about this. In addition to rotating the pieces in a lock puzzle, only in a lock puzzle, you can also rotate the center, the starting piece of the lock puzzle. So remember, it had that cross shape, and then there was 1 tile on each corner. I could have rotated the entire middle piece 90 degrees in either direction for an action. And that could probably have saved me several of those draw and replace actions that I took. But it's neither here nor there. For the electricity puzzle, the wiring puzzle, basically what we need to do is create a continuous line from the start to the end of the wiring puzzle. And that means that it has to have a continuous line of wires all the way from here to here, and the wires cannot change color when you cross the boundary from one tile to another. So since this goes from red to blue, the wiring would fail here. We need to rotate or swap or replace this so that it goes from red to red. But then once it hits the circuit box, it can change to a different color of wire at that point. But whenever you cross the boundary of a tile, it has to be the same color. So I think the first thing that, let's see, Monterey Jack has an an intellect of 5, so he can do 5 actions here. And his room is in darkness, but that only gives you that only affects your attributes in combat. So his intelligence is not affected here. So he has an intellect of 5. I think his first action, he's going to rotate this 90 degrees that way. He's going to rotate this one 90 degrees like that. And this wire coming off isn't a problem, as long as you can trace your continuous wiring from start to finish. And I believe he's going to rotate this one 90 degrees like that, but then we're stuck, because he needs a blue this way and a blue this way, and this only has 1 blue on it. So he's used 3 of his 5 actions. He's going to use his final 2 actions to draw a new tile at random, and instead of setting them out in a pile, I just kept them in the bag that I used to store them. Oh, and he had some bad luck here. He drew this tile, which he doesn't need. So he's just going to keep them as they are and discard this tile that he didn't want, and that will end his action. He still has 2 movement, but he would really like to see what's under that obstacle, so he's going to stay there for his next turn and keep working on this wiring puzzle. And remember, it doesn't get reset unless a card specifically tells you to. So he gets to keep his progress for the next turn. Alright. Now, who's next? Actually, I think that was the second turn of the investigator turns. So the only one who hasn't done anything yet, no, actually, she killed the guy with her shotgun. He busted through the door, and Monterey attempted to solve that wiring puzzle, so I think we're good for going straight to the next keeper turn. Alright, one big mistake that I made, that I just realized, is I didn't give anybody their Mythos cards. I didn't resolve any of these. So instead of going back and redoing all of these turns, I'm going to keep these Mythos cards on the characters, and I'm going to resolve them at the start of the next turn. Sorry about that. So, keeper turn begins with the threat step, and that is when the investigators may remove any stun tokens that they have. Next, we draw a threat card. Maddening noises. The sounds in that place, scratching, banging, whispers in an unknown tongue, were enough to drive anyone quite mad. If there are any investigators who have 5 or fewer remaining sanity, let's see. Kate has 10. Everybody else is doing well on sanity. So, we get the otherwise. Each investigator takes 1 horror plus an additional horror for each monster in his room. If you share a room with another investigator, just take 1 horror. So it's a little awkwardly worded, but basically what I was trying to say there is, if you're in a room by yourself, take 1 horror. If you're in a room by yourself with a monster, take 2 horror. If you're in a room by yourself, or if you're in a room with a monster, but you have another investigator there, you just take 1 horror. So, they're all going to take 1 horror. Suddenly, their sanity starts to drop. Monterey Jack, particular, is on the edge. He has 6 sanity remaining. Okay. And then the monster step, where this maniac is going to move 1, 2, and confront Dexter Drake in the basement landing. And then we have the event step, where we put another time token out on the event card. Alright, time for the next investigator turn. And I believe I'm going to start with Kate Winthrop, since she is the most important character here. Being the player, the investigator who holds the silver key to get into that locked master bedroom. So she's going to start by moving into the hallway and into the master bedroom. And since the hallway is still on fire, if she dashes through it quickly enough, she won't take any damage. But she has to do a willpower test to try to... And basically, it's a horror check. If she fails, she has to take one horror. And let me just double check. It's just an unmodified willpower check? Yeah. Okay, so she's going to take an unmodified willpower check to try and dash into that burning room, and her willpower is a 6, so she needs to roll a 6 or lower. Oh, no. Alright, so she was not able to maintain her strength of will. She still gets to move into the room and move through it, so she doesn't take any damage at the end of her turn, but she is going to take another horror token. Okay, and this locked door says requires a silver key. The silver key says discard this card when you attempt to move through a locked door to discard the lock card. So we are going to get rid of both of these, silver key and the other card, and Kate. I'm sorry, that must have been bad for people with motion sickness. Kate is now in the master bedroom, where the clue was leading her, and she has not taken her action for this turn, so she's going to explore. And she finds clue 2, which we will read what that says in a second. Remember, you don't read the actual card, you read the scenario sheet. And a magic phrase. Interesting. Let's see what our scenario sheet says for Kate. And in clue 2 in the master bedroom. Alright. Reveal the lock cards in the garden and the basement landing. If the magical lock is in the basement landing, claim story choice marker 2A, otherwise claim story choice marker 2B. Alright, well we already know that the magical lock is in the garden. So it says, in that case we are going to claim story choice marker 2B. That's 2A. There we go, 2B. Or not 2B, I don't know. And we are also going to reveal the lock card in the basement landing, although in this case we have already resolved that lock card. Alright, and then we are going to read the appropriate text depending on which story choice marker we took. So, in the master bedroom, Kate finds this event. Your sight blurs and you collapse to the ground as a vision consumes you. A man whistles a cheerful tune as he drags a woman's limp body along the floor. You shiver as the body is dragged into the rain, through a muddy puddle. A shovel comes down on her head as the vision ends. Into the rain, huh? Well, that could only be one room on this board, and that is the outside, the garden. So it looks like Kate is heading there, unless she gives the magic phrase to one of the other investigators. So that was Kate Winthrop's turn. We're going to proceed next to Dexter Drake, who is facing off against this maniac in the basement landing. He's going to try to hold the maniac at bay, while Kate continues on the quest to find the next clue. So, he has his sword cane, and he can use it to attack a monster in his space as though it were a sharp or a blunt melee weapon. So that is what he is going to do. Oh! Balls! Okay, I once again forgot to resolve the Mythos cards. So I'm going to start with Kate's right now. Alright, Kate said, "Where's the door? Where there used to be a door, the wall seamlessly continues. Where did it go? test her intellect. So she might have to redo her turn here. Let me see. She is going to test her intellect of 6. Alright, that was a pass. So, luckily this did not actually affect her turn. If she had failed, she would not have been able to move through doors, and she would have had to choose a different path for her turn, probably exploring this hallway. But she passed. She was able to find the vanished door in the wall, and so we're good. Now, before we start Dexter's turn, let's resolve his Mythos card. Message in Blood. Luckily, neither of these so far have had any requirement for a room. Your mind goes blank at the sight of the bloody letters. The horrid words demand that you leave. So, as this maniac lurches toward him in the basement, he sees this message in blood on the opposite wall, saying, "Leave this place now," or something like that. So he's going to test his willpower of 5. Oh dear. This is a tough one, but let's see what happens. Oh, no. That is what we call a critical miss. So, it says, if you fail, take 2 horror, and the keeper moves you to the start space. So, not only is Dexter terrified by this message in blood that he saw, but he's so terrified that he doesn't just move back into the stairs, he moves all the way back to the front door, banging on the door trying to get out. So he's going to also take 2 horror, and I missed the horror check for the maniac moving into his space, so that's going to be a willpower check -1, or moving into his room, during the keeper turn. So that's going to be a willpower check -1. We're going to need to get a 4 or lower. So he takes another horror. So he's now got 1, 2, 3, 4 horror, leaving him with 6 sanity remaining. Well, that was unproductive, but as it so happens, that was the very start of his turn, so he is still capable of doing something. So seeing as nobody has yet explored this area of the mansion, and there might be some useful items there, he's going to go head into the kitchen. So he's going to go 1, 2, and explore this room. And find, an axe. Well, that's definitely going to be better than the sword cane. It deals a damage of 4, and it can be used to automatically solve a lock puzzle in your room. Instead of using your brain to get through that lock puzzle, you can use your brawn. Alright, that's excellent. Excellent turn, Dexter. And finally, we're going to finish this wiring puzzle to get Monterey Jack out of this darkness. Now, I should say, I didn't put a darkness token in his space because as soon as he solves this puzzle, he's going to discard the darkness token anyway, and it hasn't affected him so far. This time it will affect him because he's going to have to use a movement and an action to explore, as long as there's a darkness token in his space. So we're going to go back to this puzzle, and we are almost done here. We just need to, let's see. We're going to use 2 more to draw another tile, and hopefully it's one that we can use. Oh man, terrible luck. Another one that we can't use. No. Alright. And 2 more. He only has 5, so if this one doesn't work, He's going to waste another turn. Really? Look at this. Another one that is completely unusable. Unless he were to replace this one with something else. Well, let's see. He could do a swap. Alright. Yeah. Alright, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a swap. 1. And that'll end his turn for now. But what I'm going to eventually do is swap that, and rotate some stuff. I think it'll work. So we're back to the next keeper turn. And this is going to be the last threat card. So as soon as we finish this deck and we need to draw again, we just shuffle the discard pile like you would normally do. Trembling hands. I'm not normally clumsy. It was as though some intelligent force were tearing the object from my grasp. Sorry. Now, this is something that I've revised. So the new... We're going to ignore what it actually says. The revision that I'm testing right now is, I believe, only investigators in the room with a monster test their willpower -2. Any investigator who is not affected by this takes another Mythos card. Because I had somebody who had tried out this variant mentioned that they didn't feel that there were enough Mythos cards in play in this scenario, and I sort of agree, because as soon as you can start taking injuries, you stop seeing Mythos cards. So, and they also mentioned they didn't like the Trembling Hands, which I'm not surprised, because it's basically trying to emulate the Uncontrollable Urges Keeper action card, which people also hated. So, go figure. Alright, and also I did not resolve Monterey Jack's Mythos card. Alright, this says if he's in the study, laboratory, or chapel. So he is not in the laboratory. He is in the freezer. So what happens is if your current room does not match any of the rooms listed on the Mythos card, you put it in the nearest one that does match. So that would be this laboratory. And then as soon as somebody tries to move into the laboratory, they immediately resolve the Mythos card. Okay, so this is real simple turn. Everybody just gets another Mythos card. Three new Mythos cards. And then we have the monster step, where the maniac is going to move 2 spaces toward the nearest investigator. He has no choice but to move 1, 2, because it doesn't matter who he's going after, that's the only path toward investigators. He would attack if he ended up in the same space as an investigator, but he did not. And then we have the event step, where we add 1 more time to the event card. So, at the end of the next round, we're going to resolve the next event. Alright, we're going to continue on with our story of Mansions of Madness, Fall of House Lynch. We are on turn 7, and we're going to begin with Monterey Jack and finally finish that power failure, I hope. And before I forget, he gets a Mythos card, so let's go ahead and resolve it. Alright, it says requirement bedroom, nursery, or bathroom. So we find the nearest room that meets one of those requirements. So none of them in this wing of the house. Go over to the foyer. Obviously that's not a bedroom, bathroom, or nursery. However, there is, let's see, if we go out through this hallway, there's a guest bedroom up here. And there is a master bedroom up there. Since they are both equidistant from him, we're going to go ahead and put it in the room already containing an investigator. they are equidistant from the investigator who's resolving the Mythos card. You put them closest to him, and break ties for what is closest to another investigator. Okay, so he's going to use another move and explore, because he is in darkness, to finish this lock puzzle. And I believe I've got it solved. What he's going to do is he rotates this like so, and then rotates this one like so. Alright. So we can trace continuous line without changing color on the edges. So the power springs back into life, and he can continue exploring the room, see what was in that freezer that took him 3 turns to get. Oh, yeah, that's worth it. An Elder Sign, which you can test his lore to move monsters in his room 2 spaces away from him. So, looking at his lore, that's a 4. He might be giving this to either of the other 2 who have a higher lore. We'll see if he actually gets a chance to. So, he has 1 movement remaining, and so he's going to move back. Having fully explored this area, he's going to start moving back toward the other parts of the house. So that was Monterey Jack's turn. Now, let's go next to Kate Winthrop in the master bedroom. So she has 2 Mythos cards that she has to resolve. The one that was dealt to her, she resolves first, and then, since she's starting her turn in this room with a Mythos card, she has to resolve that one immediately. So, the one that was dealt to her requires her to be in a bedroom, hallway, foyer, or attic, which she is, so this one gets to take place. You run frantically down the hall, away from some unseen evil, only to lose your footing. She has to test her dexterity, and if she fails, she is stunned. So her dexterity is 5. Let's see what she can do. Oh dear. So, she hears a noise in the master bedroom and turns to run away, but trips and falls and is stunned. So for this turn, she only gets 1 movement, and she gets -2 to all of her attribute tests, including this next one, if this card requires one. A reflection. You glance in the mirror, but alas, there is no one looking back at you. So she's going to take 1 more horror. She is not faring too well against the horrific abominations of this house. She is down to 1, 2, 3, 4. She's down to 7 sanity, having started out with 11. She's also the only investigator to have taken any physical damage. Bad turn for her. So since she only gets 1 movement, she will have to move out into the hall, which is on fire, and she'll have to use her action to run. Otherwise, she'll be left in the hall and take some damage. But in order to move out into the hall, she has to do a willpower test, and it's going to be -2 because she is stunned, so she gets a -2 to all of her attribute tests. So I'm thinking that she might just do something else, not move, and use her action. What the heck, she's going to use her action to try to cast this Blood Pact spell. Choose an investigator in your room to heal 1 damage, then test your lore, and flip this card over and resolve the effect. So that's what she's going to do. She's switching out her 2 damage token for a 1 damage token. And she's going to test her lore. Remember, it's -2. But she's going to use a skill token to add +2 to it, so it's her base lore of 6. Because you don't want to have the bad effects of these spells, trust me. Ugh. That's a 9. Alright, let's see what happens to poor Kate when she flubs that spell. The skin around the recently healed wounds appears translucent and covered in an unidentified, viscous slime. Take 1 horror. I guess she should know better than try to cast spells while she is slightly concussed. Alright, so I have just switched out her 5 horror tokens for a 5 horror token, which leaves her with 6 sanity remaining. She is doing very poorly for a rational, scientific mind. And we have 1 investigator turn remaining, and that is good old Dexter Drake, the magician. And he also has a Mythos card that he has to resolve. Locked behind. You jump as every door in the room slams shut. You frantically try to open one, but it is jammed. Test your strength. Alright, his strength is very low at a 4, but I don't want to spend his last skill token. So I'm just going to roll for 4, and nope. You may not move through any doors this turn. So he is locked inside this room, which is sort of bad. Bad news for him, considering that there's nothing to do there. He could use his sedative, but it wouldn't do any good at this point. So he is just going to use 1 movement to move here, so he's slightly closer to the door for his next turn, and just end his turn there, because there's nothing else he can do, short of moving back into the foyer. Well, he can't move into the foyer because he's locked in the room. So that is the investigator turn. Now we move straight to the keeper turn. As always, we will start the keeper turn by flipping over a new threat card, and I went ahead and shuffled these. So what is the new threat card going to be? The Mansion Strikes. Okay, we've seen this one before. It only has an effect if the Mansion Holds Its Breath is in the discard. Otherwise, you put the Mansion Holds Its Breath in the discard and put the Mansion Strikes back in. So we will go ahead and do that. Alright, so luckily, nothing too bad happened to the investigators in this case. We will now go to the monster step, where Johnny, our axe-wielding maniac, will move 2 spaces toward the nearest investigator. So here we have to decide who is the nearest investigator. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to Dexter. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, more than 4 to get to Kate, and more than 4 to get to Monterey Jack. So he is chasing Dexter, who, if you recall on a previous turn, ran all the way back to the foyer to escape from this maniac. So, bad news for Dexter. 1, 2. And he's waiting right outside this locked door. Alright. And then finally, we will put another clock token out on the event card, and there are now 4 clock tokens on the event card, so we get to draw and resolve it. The clock strikes 11. If clue 2 has not been found, each investigator takes 1 horror. So again, it's incentivizing us to move quickly. In this case, we have found clue 2. So we check. It looks like we have clue 2B, so let's see what we get. The lights momentarily go out as an explosion of gunfire echoes down the hall. But who was gun? Each investigator in a bedroom space, oh crap, is dealt 2 damage. Well, guess who's in a bedroom space? Kate! Alright, so she just healed her 2 damage down to 1. Now she's going to turn it into a 3. Bad luck for Kate. Alright, so now we are on investigator turn 9, 8. I believe it's turn 8. And one thing I did forget to do is at the beginning of the Keeper's Threat step, all investigators discard their stun tokens. So, luckily, Kate now gets her full range of movement and action, and she really needs to book it down to the garden with that magic phrase to open the magical lock and find out what that mysterious man in her vision was doing with that dead lady out in the garden. Alright. So, Katie, what are you going to do? So, I believe, let's see, I could move into the hallway, explore the hallway, and then move. I could move, and then run, or I could move, and explore this hallway. I believe, since that hallway is on fire, I'm going to go ahead and explore it while I'm close to it. So I don't have to take any more horror moving into it. So she's going to test her willpower, which is a 6, to move into that hallway. Alright, we just barely got it. Remember, you have to meet or get lower than the value. So, 1, she's going to explore, which does not lead to any damage. Oh, and bad luck, there's nothing of interest in the hallway because it all got burned up in the blaze. And then spend her last movement to move back out into this hallway. Book it toward the garden. Okay, next investigator, I believe, will be Monterey Jack. Now, since Kate is having such poor luck with her sanity rolls, I believe he's going to be kind and trigger this Mythos card in the laboratory so that she won't have to deal with it. So he's going to go 1, and then immediately as soon as he moves into that room, he has to deal with the Mythos card. So let's see what it is. Ancient Knowledge. Alright. An unseen force beckons you to pick up a book of ancient wisdom. On its pages are no words, only a blackness that makes you realize the insignificance of your existence. Somebody's read Lovecraft, I think. Alright, so he's going to take a horror as a result of that unspeakable knowledge that he just got. He doesn't get any benefit. He just has to take a horror. So that was his 1 movement, and then 2, and he's just going to wait there to meet up with Kate. Because he doesn't want to move into the room with the maniac, because then he will have to take a horror test. Okay, and finally we have Dexter Drake, who is confronting a maniac on the other side of the door from him. But he is, let's see, he has an axe. He has a sword cane. But I believe he's going to continue exploring the kitchen area. So he's going to go 1, 2, and explore the kitchen storage room with his action. And that says, another nothing of interest, just pots and pans and bags of flour. Alright. Luckily, we got all of the bad exploration cards later in the game, so we got some good equipment to start out with. So, I guess you can look at it that way. Now we go to the next Keeper turn. So we start with the Threat deck. Taking its toll. If there are any investigators who have taken 1 or more damage and do not have an injury card, Kate Winthrop, I'm looking at you. Each investigator takes an injury or serious injury card according to his damage level. So, remember, more than 5 remaining health gets you a regular injury card. 5 or lower remaining health gets you a serious injury card. Kate has 6, so she gets a regular injury. Alright, turns out she has an infected wound. Ha! That stings. Is it supposed to be leaking like that? It smells terrible. She may not heal more than 1 damage during each game round. Well, that probably wasn't going to happen anyway. But you never know. Her blood-packed spell might have had a positive extra healing benefit if she rolled really well. So that was the keeper action. Now the maniac is going to move 2 spaces toward the nearest investigator. So we're going to have to reevaluate. He is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away from Dexter. He is 1, 2, 3 spaces away from Monterey. And 1, 2, 3 spaces away from Kate. Alright, so as this monster moves, according to the general practice for the threat deck variant, he will go toward, if they're equidistant, the investigator with the lowest remaining health. And unfortunately, that is Kate, who has a health of 6 and an infected septic wound. Alright, so he's going to go 1, 2. Actually, it didn't really matter. It turns out he's going to end in the same space no matter who he moves toward, but that is where he is ending up. And luckily, Kate has a shotgun, but she really doesn't want to expose herself to more horror damage. And finally, we get another time token on the event, and we are ready for our next investigator turn, which I believe we will... let's start with Kate, who I think is going to try to shoot this guy through the door, because that is a special ability of the shotgun. You can attack a monster within 1 range, even through a door. Normally, ranged weapons can't hit through walls or doors. So she's going to attack the maniac through this hallway door. Bam! Let's see what happens. She aims for his heart. I guess judging from the sound of his footsteps. She's going to aim for his heart. She's going to test her marksmanship -1. Kate's marksmanship is a 5, so she has to roll a 4 or lower. She's going to use a skill point on this one. So she has 1 remaining, and she is going to test a 6 instead. She didn't need to use that skill point because she rolled a 1. Oh, man. His chest explodes in a spray of gore. Deal you weapon damage +3. So her shotgun deals 4 damage. She doesn't get the +1 because or +2 because he's in her space, but she does get the +3 from shooting him straight in the heart through a door. Pretty impressive, Kate. And so he's going to take 7 damage. That probably will kill him, but let's just check. Yes, this one had 5 health. So once again, they think that they've killed this guy. But we all know how that goes. Okay, so now that Kate has dealt with the maniac, she is going to use her movement 1, 2 to move into the laboratory. And on the next keeper turn, she's probably going to give that shotgun to Monterey Jack, who has a higher marksmanship skill. Oh, they have the same marksmanship, but he would be better for combat because he hasn't taken any damage. So in that case, I think Monterey Jack is going to not do anything with his turn. Yeah, there's nothing really he wants to do. So he's just going to stay there on his turn. Sort of a waste, but he doesn't want to move anywhere else. Well, I guess... Yeah, okay, whatever. He's going to move 1, 2, and explore this hallway here. Maybe he'll find something good. Let's see. Nothing but dust bunnies. Damn it, Monterey. Couldn't you have just stayed with the lady? Okay, so that's Monterey Jack's turn. Now, finally, we have Dexter Drake, who just got done searching the kitchen storage, and now he's going to search the kitchen itself. 1, he's going to explore, and then he's going to end his turn down here. So let's see what he finds. A fire extinguisher. It can be used as a blunt melee weapon, or you can discard it to discard a fire token from your room. So if it turned out that this fire token had ended up in the bedroom where people were going to spend more than one turn, or somewhere else bad, like the foyer, we could use it to get rid of it. But I think he's just going to keep it to use as a weapon. Okay. So we're going to go straight to the next threat step. And see what we get. Trembling hands again. So, no investigators are in rooms with monsters, so they are going to all get another Mythos card. Two, three. Alright. There's no monsters in play, so we can skip the monster step, and we put another time token out. One more, and the next event gets revealed. Alright, we're on investigator turn number 10, I believe. And start out, Kate Winthrop wants to move it toward the garden with her magical passphrase. So she's going to go 1, 2, and she could run and get into that entryway, but she still wouldn't be able to make it to the garden. So I believe what she's going to do is use her last point. Oh, she has a Mythos card. Always forget about this. So she was in the laboratory top space there, and it says hallway, foyer, bedroom, or gallery. So she is in none of those. The closest one to her is the foyer, so we get a Mythos card in the foyer. We don't know what it is yet. You technically could cheat by looking at the Mythos card, but I like to just read the room requirements and try to ignore the rest, so it's a little bit more of a surprise. So, anyway, back to Kate's turn. She was here. She could run to get into that entryway, but I believe what she's going to do instead is try to cast her Blood Pact spell again to try and heal some damage. So first she's going to heal 1 damage from herself. She always gets to do that, even if she fails her test. Then she's going to test her lore, which is currently at a 6. So let's see what she gets. Seriously? Okay. The wound abruptly reopens, and blood begins to spray out in a black and red mess. Take 1 damage and 1 horror. Oh, Kate. Oh, Kate. Okay, so we didn't actually heal anything, and we get another horror. Yay. So she's down to 5 sanity. Pretty soon, she's gonna be insane. Alright. So now we have Monterey Jack up there. Nobody's tried to explore the guest bedroom yet. Maybe he should do that. What the heck, since he's already there. Monterey Jack is going to try to explore the guest bedroom. And it is a dark room, so let's look at this lock card first. That says, put a darkness token in this room, then nothing else happens. Okay, so he's going to explore the guest bedroom. 1, 2, and the guest bedroom is dark. There are no lights on. says you open the door and see nothing but pitch blackness. You reach for the light switch, but nothing happens. So we just put a darkness token on the room, and the darkness tokens look like this. And basically, what that does is he has to use a movement and an action to explore the room, and gets -2 to combat checks. So unfortunately, he cannot explore further, because he only has his action remaining. And this is all one space, yeah. So what he can do is try to, he uses his action to run and try to move into this storage closet and see what's in there. So I think that's what he will do. So he's going to use his action as a movement and try to enter the storage closet and reveal the lock card to be a padlocked door. The door leading into this room is sealed with a rusted combination lock. We have to solve lock puzzle 4A, so I'll get that set up. Okay, here we have lock puzzle 4A, and as you can see, some of it is already solved, luckily enough. And remember, you can rotate the dials, or you can swap them. You just can't swap anything with the starting tile, but you can rotate the starting tile. We're not going to need to, but we could. Alright, so I think what we're going to do, yeah, this will work out. Rotate this, like so. 1, 2, and this is Monterey Jack, so he has 5 intellect, so he has 5 moves. 1, 2, 3, guess I'll use my left hand. 3, so that side is all solved, and now we're going to work on this side, which is all solved except 4, 5. And he did it, barely, in one turn, moved through that padlocked door. So, click, everything opens up, and we're going to get rid of this padlocked door, and move Monterey Jack into here. Now, he used his action to run, so he does not get to explore until his next turn. Alright, that was, I believe, all of the investigators. Dang it! I forgot about their Mythos cards again. Alright, let's see. Dexter has what's for dinner, so that does affect him, because it's dining room, kitchen. And it says, strewn across the table is filthy kitchenware and rotting food. Some unknown urge makes you take a bite. Test your willpower -1. So he has, so that's a 4. Alright, he passed. So he resisted the urge to take a bite of the rotting food through an incredible display of will. And Monterey Jack, his was foyer, stairs, or space with ladder. So he did not start out in a foyer, stairs, or space with ladder, but he was next to the foyer. So there are now 2 Mythos cards for the first person to enter the foyer. Bad luck. Now, in the normal rules, you're only allowed to play 1 Mythos card per investigator per round, but come on, this is a fully cooperative variant. We need some challenge. So these Mythos cards can really stack up. Alright, now we have the threat step. Here's Johnny. There are no maniac figures in play. Spawn a maniac in the room containing the smallest group of investigators. Now, all investigators are off by themselves now, so we will go to the one with the lowest health remaining, which is poor Kate. So, I'm going to shuffle together these Maniac bases, and here's Johnny! Alright, so the strange, crazed madman with an axe bursts through the wall right behind Kate Winthrop, who's startled and must do a horror check, modified by his horror rating of -1 because he did just burst through a wall. Alright, so that is a 6 minus 1, that's a 5 or lower, and she got a 3 passing, so she did not take any horror, any damage to her sanity from that maniac, miraculously, but he will be attacking her. So, can we see if there's anything else? No, nothing else on the threat card, so it's time to have the monster step. So he is already in a space with an investigator, so he's going to go ahead straight ahead and attack. He begins screaming in a strange tongue. Test your lore. Alright, Kate. She has a lore of 6. She is a scientist after all. And she got a 3. She recognizes a few words and screams over the incantation. Take 1 horror. If she had not recognized that he was about to cast a spell, she would have taken some damage as well. So now she has 7 horror. She's down to, what is that, 4 health remaining. She's going to take a serious injury next time. It's really bad. Alright. And then we finally go to the event step, and we get our 3rd token, so we're going to resolve this event. Let's see what it is. The clock strikes 12. A living corpse rises up from its resting place. Judging from the pictures you've seen, the corpse is undoubtedly Edith Lynch, albeit dead for weeks. Place 1 zombie in the room chosen for setup question number 2. Remember, we have 2B, so the zombie is going to end up in the garden. The corpse of Edith Lynch. So now we're beginning to get a sense of this story coming together. Why are there undead figures all throughout the house? Who is this maniac who's chasing after us? Why did Walter Lynch's wife, Edith, rise from the dead after being buried in the garden? We will soon find out, I'm sure. Alright, so we have the undead corpse of Edith Lynch in the garden. We have the unknown maniac right behind Kate Winthrop, who just happens to have a shotgun, and everybody else is sort of screwing around in other parts of the mansion like idiots. What will happen next? Alright, YouTubers. The Fall of House Lynch is reaching its climax, I feel, as we open up turn 11 for the investigators. And Kate Winthrop has just been surprised by the maniac once again bursting through the wall behind her. Meanwhile, the corpse of Walter Lynch's dead wife, Edith, has risen from her hastily dug grave out in the garden, and Monterey Jack is exploring the guest bedroom, while poor old Dexter Drake is trying to just get back into the action. Alright, so I believe we're going to start with Dexter Drake, because his turn's going to be pretty simple. And one thing I haven't been really paying attention to, I always forget to use these, are the once per game abilities. Every investigator starts with a once per game ability. You get to choose between 2, and that determines your stats and your once per game ability. And Kate's test theories, I'm probably going to use this turn. Well, no, darn, I lost my chance to use it. Her test theories we are changing in this variant because obviously you can't read the objective card. There's only one objective in this variant. So her test theories is basically if you pass the test that's listed on this card, you get to reveal all lock cards on the board. However, there are no lock cards left on the board, so not so useful for her. Monterey Jack's thirsty for discovery. Once per game, after a non-key, non-story item exploration card is revealed by an investigator exploring any room, you immediately take that card. Once again, he probably lost his only chance to use it because every room has been explored already. And Dexter Drake, once per game, while you are hiding, you may spend both of your movement steps to move to any space in any room that contains no exploration, lock, or obstacle cards. Probably not going to get to use that either, so I always forget about those. Maybe one day I'll remember. Okay, so we're going to start with Dexter Drake, who is just going to go 1, 2, and as soon as he enters the foyer, he's triggering these 2 Mythos cards. We'll start with the one on top. Vertigo. The stairs bend in front of you, and you lose your balance. Test your willpower, Mr. Drake. Oh, that's not a pass. So, he loses his balance and takes 1 damage. This will be the first damage for Dexter. And that's not all. Poltergeist. A painting flies off the wall toward your head. Test your willpower +1 and your dexterity +1. So first we're going to see if we're horrified by the flying painting. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Alright, so he has taken another horror. He is down to 5 remaining sanity. But now he's going to try to dodge. So this is his dexterity of 6 +1. That's a 7. Whoop! That was a 4. Alright, so he successfully dodged the flying painting, but not before it mentally scarred him. Alright, so that was 2 movements that he's taken. He's going to run for the 3rd one. And he is waiting in the foyer for the others. Now, we will go to Kate Winthrop, who is in the operating room with the maniac and the candlestick. There's a little clue reference. Not a very good one. Alright. Oh, you know what? She has the flux stabilizer. And that says whenever a monster is placed, but not moved, but placed into your room, the keeper must instead place the monster in an adjacent room. So, when the maniac bursts through the wall, instead of ending up in her room, he could be in one of these adjacent rooms. So I'm just going to put him in the freezer because of her flux stabilizer. That was lucky. So in fact, she is not trapped in this room with the maniac. So she is able to rush, without having to worry about fighting the maniac, rush out to investigate beyond this magical lock. So we're going to go 1, and then she's going to shoot her shotgun through this door again at the corpse of Edith. Let's see what happens. Alright. She tries to clear her mind and focus on the shot. Oh, this is a bad one. Test your remaining sanity. My remaining sanity is only 4. Now she, I believe, should have 1 more sanity remaining because that maniac didn't actually appear in her room, but it's been a little while since I filmed that last segment, and I'm not sure. So I'm just going to have her test her remaining sanity of 4. Bad luck. Alright, She tries to clear her mind, but she suddenly visualizes her foe slicing her open, forcing her to miss her shot. Not only does she deal no damage to the zombie, but she takes a horror. So now she is down to 3 remaining sanity. Not good. And then she's going to spend her last movement to enter this space with the zombie, which is going to cause her to do a horror check. Now the zombie is about as horrifying as the maniac, but less agile. I haven't had to do an evade action yet, but if you try to do an action or a movement, anything other than attacking, when you're in the same space as a monster, you have to try to evade it. It's modified by this number. Since the zombie is sort of slow and lumbering, you get a +1 to your dexterity skill. Alright, so using the magic phrase, she is able to discard this magic lock. And now she has to do a horror check against the corpse of Edith. So that is going to be her willpower of 6 minus 1. 5 or lower. Oh dear. That's a 9. So she's going to take another horror. She is down to 2 remaining sanity. Things are just too much for this scientific mind to handle. Okay. Finally, we have Monterey Jack up here in the guest bedroom closet. He's going to begin by exploring. Oh, he's found a lantern. Investigators in his room may ignore darkness. Okay, that's a pretty good one. And then he's going to move out to the guest bedroom. And, you know, things are just looking so bad for Kate. I think he's going to not even bother to explore that area and just continue on into the hallway. Alright, so that ends all of the investigator turns. We will now go to the keeper step. And let's see what the keeper threat is. Maddening noises. If there are any investigators with 5 or fewer remaining sanity. Well, let's check. Kate has 2, and Monterey Jack has 5. And Dexter Drake has 5. All of them have 5 or fewer remaining sanity. So each investigator takes an insanity or severe insanity according to his sanity level. You only take a severe insanity if you have 0 remaining. So everybody is going to take an insanity card. So let's see what they get. Dexter Drake is going to gain claustrophobia. The walls are closing in. I can't breathe. I need space. Let me out. Every time he ends his turn in a room that contains only 1 space, he must take 1 horror. Monterey Jack gets panic. What am I going to do? There's nothing I can do. I need to get out of here right now. I need to get out! The keeper may immediately move you up to 3 spaces. And the general rules for this are you always move back in the direction that you just came from. So in this case, he's going to move back into the guest bedroom storage closet because he's so panicked. But luckily, that is not a lasting effect like Dexter had. And then finally, we have Kate Winthrop, who's going to gain nyctophobia. Did you hear something? Where's the light switch? Oh God, where is the light? Each time she will enter a basement, attic, cave, or a room in darkness, she has to do a horror test, basically. So, not so good for our investigators. Next, we have the monster's turn. So the monsters are each going to move 2 spaces toward the nearest investigator. The nearest investigator to the maniac here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to Dexter. 1, 2, 3. Only 3 to Kate, so unfortunately he is still chasing after Kate. Luckily, he did not quite enter her room. So maybe she can shoot at him through the door with this shotgun before he can get to her. Unfortunately, the zombie is in her space already, so it's just going to straight up attack. And the monster makes its special attack. So we are going to flip over this monster and see what its special attack is. Alright. The zombie lunges at your face. Test your dexterity. Alright, let's see what the dexterity is for... She's got a 5. Not good. Alright, I think she's going to spend her last skill point on this one. Now she needs to roll a 7 or lower. Come on. Alright. It was a 5. She didn't even need to spend a skill point. So, she barely avoids his decaying grasp. No effect. Pretty good for Kate there. Alright. And now that that is over, we have our event step. Just put one more time token on there. And we begin the next investigator turn. So let's start with Kate, who is surrounded by enemies here. And let's see, she has a shotgun, she has a flux stabilizer, she has a nyctophobia and an infected wound. So the only thing that's going to help her is the shotgun. So we're going to try to blast this zombie, which luckily is in our space, which means that I can deal 2 extra damage if I hit it. So, let's see what the ranged combat card says. Alright. On pure instinct and adrenaline, you fire instantly. Test your marksmanship, which is a 5. And a 3. Alright. He screams as a bullet is buried in his leg. Her leg, sorry. Walter's reanimated wife screams as a bullet is buried in her leg. Deal weapon damage -1 and stun the monster. So, we're going to do 4 plus 2 damage, because it's in our space, -1, which is a 5. We need a 6. So, did not kill it, but we did stun it. And that's sort of bad for us, because that means we still have this zombie in our space. So if we want to explore, which we should do to try to complete the scenario, we're going to have to evade him. And I believe this is something that I always forget. I believe the official ruling is that stun tokens do not affect your need to evade. You still need to evade if the monster is stunned. I could be wrong about that. But let's just go with that for now. And so, to do an evade test, we're going to test her dexterity +1 because the zombie is sort of slow. So that's a 6. Alright, we rolled a 5, so we passed the evade test. Don't take any additional damage from the zombie. And we find clue 1. So we ignore what's written on this card, and we're going to look at our scenario sheet and see what it says. Alright. Read the following passage aloud. Somewhere in the house, Walter attempts to use your own flesh and blood to enact an ancient summoning. The ground shakes, knocking books and trinkets off the shelves. If the objective has not yet been revealed, it hasn't, place 2 threat tokens on top of the event deck. During the event step, if there is a threat token on the event deck, remove a threat token instead of adding a time token. So we're going to take these 2 threat tokens, and we're going to put them on top of the event deck instead of adding time. Reveal the objective. Remove all Maniac figures from play. So we're going to take Johnny here, remove him from play. We are going to remove the Tooth and Nail, Curious Attack, and Here's Johnny threat cards from the game. Interesting. So basically, what we've done here is sort of culled the threat deck for the things that would not be useful in the final confrontation of the scenario, so that the keeper's behavior changes once the objective has been revealed. If there are 1 or more sample tokens on the altar, there are no sample tokens on the altar, thank goodness. Otherwise we would have had to summon a Shoggoth. Instead, we will spawn Walter Lynch at the space containing the investigator with the lowest remaining health. That, my friends, is Kate Winthrop. So Walter Lynch is a named maniac with +4 health per investigator. And the fact that he is named is important because the rules state that named monsters cannot be killed by any ability that would instantly kill a monster, things like that. He is a named maniac with +4 health per investigator. We have 3 investigators, so he's going to have +12 health. That is insane. Let's see here. I think the highest that we have is a +11. So we're going to give him we're going to give him that +11. And another one just to keep track, which we'll put here. Alright, so he would spawn, let's see, we've got the +11 and then another +1. He would spawn in her space, but because she has the flux stabilizer, he has to spawn in an adjacent room. So he's going to spawn there instead. Read the following aloud. The blood freezes in your veins as you finally realize that Walter is attempting to use you to summon some kind of monstrous creature. You cannot, will not, allow that to happen. If Walter summons up something from hell, then you will make it your personal mission to put it straight back down, or die in the attempt. And we are going to reveal the final objective. When the final objective is revealed for any reason, claim story choice marker 1C. The investigators win if they kill the named monster revealed by clue 1. That is, Walter Lynch, the maniac, who it turns out is the man who has been chasing us around the mansion the entire time. The investigators win if they kill Walter Lynch, and all surviving investigators escape through the foyer. The investigators lose if all investigators are killed, or the last event card is drawn. So because we were able to find the first clue before the objective got revealed by other means, we have a few extra rounds. Instead of putting time tokens, we get to remove threat tokens from the event deck. So, we're going to try and kill investigator who has kill Walter Lynch, who has an insane amount of health, and escape. That's not going to be easy. And I think I will end it there. Got to keep you in suspense a little bit. So that is pretty much everything that you need to know about using the threat deck no keeper variant for Mansions of Madness. That was, again, the Fall of House Lynch, the first scenario in the game. There is currently one more scenario available to download, the Inner Sanctum, and I'm going to be working on more over the course of this month, and October. So definitely, if there's a scenario that you want to see particularly, let me know, and I will see if I can focus my efforts on that one. But yeah, that's the game. As you can see, it pretty much works. I was a little surprised. To be honest, I had to tweak a few things, of course, to the basic formula to get it right, but I think the basic formula is very functional at this point. The threat decks themselves could be tweaked a little bit depending on the scenario, but for all intents and purposes, it is Mansions of Madness, and yet a fully cooperative game. So I'm happy with it, and Mansions of Madness, I just have to state, is probably my second favorite board game. My first favorite board game being Android, also from Fantasy Flight Games, because both of those games, I think, take insane risks in terms of pushing the boundaries of storytelling in the format of a board game. And as I hope you sort of got a sense from this playthrough, you know, the rather detailed setup of the game leads to some, I think, satisfying elements to the exploration, where you're not just finding like a a swinging blade trap in the middle of the drawbridge or something like that. You're not delving into an ice cave in the middle of the Sahara. Everything feels cohesive, and it feels like it's building toward a greater story. And even though the story itself is just sketched out in terms of the flavor text, because the exploration and the events and the keeper actions are all something that was designed with this particular story in mind, there's a lot more story that you can infer based on how it plays out. So I think that's something that's really cool. So yeah, that's Mansions of Madness. If you don't own a copy of the game, you should definitely get one. It is one of my favorite games. If you do own a copy of the game but have been frustrated because you have to play it with a keeper player and nobody wants to play against the keeper player because they play mean, or nobody wants to be the keeper player, now you have another option. And in my mind, it is a good option. It's good enough for me to break out the game every once in a while. So, there you go. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you for the next game.